Welcome to the Inspired Hygiene Podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Wall. I'm an RDH and founder of Inspired Hygiene. For over 20 years, we've had the unique opportunity to see what really happens inside thousands of dental hygiene ops and what it takes to create transformational change that impacts the lives of patients, practice owners, and teams. Each season, we'll focus on one powerful topic, breaking it down with practical strategies, real stories, and tools you can use right away. Let's get into it. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Inspired Hygiene Podcast. So today I am here with Dr. Bill Keith. Dr. Keith, thank you so much for being with us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. It was fun.
Yeah, I'm excited about this. So you and I met first through Dental Success Network, and you are very involved in Dental Success Network, Dental Success Institute. So would love to hear a little bit about that too. And then you engaged Inspired Hygiene to help work with your team. You have a large practice, a large hygiene team to really get the team calibrated, get everybody on the same page, get a common treatment standard in place. And you all had really great results. And I'm really honored that we had the chance to work with you for quite a while, actually. And
really beneficial.
Thank you. And you had a lot of changes for the positive within your team during that time. And then you also had some challenging changes during that time. So I'd love to hear a little bit about that from you today too. But tell everybody about your story. What have you been up to lately? I would just love for them to get to know you.
Yeah, sure. Again, thanks for having me. I'm a dentist based out of Kansas City. We're big Chiefs fans, so on the weekends, that's where you'll find us. Married to my wife, Ashley, who I stole out of corporate America and works as our COO at our office. I came at dentistry kind of from a weird roundabout way. My dad was a dentist, and I did everything I possibly could to not become a dentist. So originally went to school for engineering, took Calculus 3 and decided that probably wasn't my path, my calling. Started taking business classes. That was pretty interesting. Graduated with accounting and finance degrees, sat and passed half the CPA. And that was around 2008, and not a great time to be going out into the finance world. So came back home to Kansas City, worked in corporate for a while, kind of got to understand that structure and realized that it wasn't so much for me. Started a couple businesses, including a wealth management company, a property management company. I was kind of a jack of all trades in my 20s, trying to figure out who I was and what I wanted to do. And then one day I was telling my dad that, I see these dentist friends of yours and, they seem like really nice people, but they don't seem to understand business. We should start a consulting group together and do something along those lines. And, I was sharing that with a buddy, and he goes, well, why don't you just become the dentist and start your own company and do that? And so flash forward 6 months later, I was in dental school and went down that path. We took our practice. I bought it out from my dad pretty much immediately after graduating. And he became my associate, which is a really fun dynamic for us to get to work together. But ultimately, he retired a few years ago. We brought on Ashley. We took what was at one point, kind of a mom and pop 2-doc shop that had done really well through the roaring 90s and early 2000s of dentistry, when PPOs actually paid decently and all these fun things. And we ended up expanding from what he had, which was a decent sized practice of 13 ops, to now we have 23 ops. We took it from 2 doctors to now we have 6 practicing doctors. I'm our 7th. I'm no longer practicing, or at least very sparingly. So, and then we've now taken that and taken it a step further, where through Dental Success, which if you're not familiar with the Dentalpreneur podcast, that's another great one for people to check out.
Yeah.
Through Dental Success, Mark Costas, all of the different, consulting mastermind things. We became very involved in that. I'm one of the black belt coaches. We've launched our own DSO now. So we have the Dental Success Partners, which is a DSO that, is a group of those of us that kind of all had a common interest in figuring out how to, to some extent monetize what we've done over the years, but then also realizing that the consolidation wave of dentistry isn't stopping, and how we could join that wave in a way that we were comfortable with. as opposed to a way that made it feel like we were just selling out. So
Mhm.
it's been a fun ride. All of that I just said. I'm turning 40 this year, so it's been a busy 20 years or whatever since I graduated college, but it's been fun, and I think now we've got a pretty good direction of where we're headed. And I guess I'm no longer the young guy in the room, so it's not a bad thing.
Yeah, I noticed when I was doing some research that you were in the 40 under 40 in Benco's and Sizel Edge a while back.
Yeah, that was I think that was 2019. It was right before COVID.
Yeah.
We had just built out our new office space, and that was 20 ops. And at the time, I think it was one of the bigger projects that Benco had taken on, and we were very happy with how it ended up. And they saw that the wave of 4 and 5 offices kind of yesteryear was over, and I think that's part of the reason that I got to be a part of that. But it was a neat
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah, that was cool to discover that. And also, we're going to link to the Dentalpreneur podcast. Particularly, you've got 2 episodes in there about integrating AI into the practice,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. I'm real here, by the way. This is really me.
Yeah, that is really you. This is really me. We haven't gotten there yet. However, I did hear from one of my dental friends that they've tested out like having 2 AI bots basically do a podcast together, and he said it is scarily real. So, but yeah, no, we're here. All of our bumps and bruises from the last however many years we've been doing this.
Exactly.
But you've also developed PowerVox, which is an AI receptionist, and you told me about this probably 6 or 8 months ago. So how has that developed recently?
Yeah, we're really excited about this. And I use the term "I developed" very loosely because I am not a programmer. I don't know anything. I just happen to know the right people that could put the right people in the room, and they're definitely the ones that deserve the credit. But we've looked at it from the dental side and what problem it is that we're trying to solve. And whenever we're talking about our marketing, the first question that I get asked is, well, what's your phone call answer rate? And when I'm coaching folks with Inside Dental Success, it's the same question. Okay, I'm spending this much money. Well, what's your answer rate? Well, an average office might have an answer rate of close to 50%. 70% is starting to consider to be pretty decent, and over 80% is like unheard of. And the front desk will always tell you that they're answering every call, and they're doing their best.
Yeah.
But when there's a patient in front of them, you can't say, "Excuse me just a minute," and answer the phone. So
Right.
initially, I think when I was talking with the guys that developed it, they thought that we were trying to replace the receptionist. And that's absolutely not the case of what kind of the precipice that brought me to want to do it is. It's, I want overflow, and especially after hours, for people to be able to call my office, have an interaction with somebody, if you will, put it in air quotes, be able to schedule an appointment, have some very basic questions answered, and generally just get a feel for what our office is like. And not, it's very transactional to talk with a bot on a website, and it's transactional to schedule online. And that's okay for some patients.
Yeah.
What we found is a lot of times patients will get onto your website and they will see your availability, and then they will call the phone number to schedule, as opposed to scheduling on the website, because they want to talk and they find out more about it. So we wanted to make that personal connection. So we developed PowerVox. We use it for overflow and after hours calls. You'd be amazed how many people call at 2:00 in the morning because they just woke up with a toothache. What's fascinating is in the way that Google works, we found out that they are actually putting our office higher on the search results after hours, because they now know that we answer the phone.
Wow. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought it was so it's been cool.
We're gonna get to our kind of hygiene doctor relationship topic in a second, but I want to dive a little bit deeper into this AI thing, because I was at the Kane Waters annual meeting last week, and one of their partners, Hunter Satterfield, did a presentation about AI, and it was really kind of a history lesson about industrialization and how technology impacts demand and like going back, I mean, he went all the way back, but just one of the examples he gave was the cotton gin. And that, people were really afraid that the development of the cotton gin was going to replace their jobs and they weren't going to have jobs. But what it actually did is it increased demand so drastically for cotton because it could be processed so much faster and easier that there were exponentially more jobs available in that industry. So I don't know exactly how that's going to shake out, in dental I don't know the exact like transformation that that's going to create. But I think that his point was there are multiple examples of how innovation actually opens up more opportunity. And I think this is the perfect example because without that particular technology, those calls would just go unanswered, or they would go to someone is taking a message, which then it creates more work for your team when they get in the office the next day. So it is creating opportunity for your practice and your team because those patients are actually making appointments.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think, anytime a groundbreaking technology comes out, which I definitely consider AI to be that,
Yeah.
uh, everybody kind of freaks out. My dad said for years, they came out with a calculator and, well, the guy that made the slide rules didn't have a job anymore, but it's still good we came out with the calculator. And that guy probably found another job doing something else, right? So, I think we need to look at it with a healthy dose of, skepticism in the sense that it's not perfect.
Yeah.
I use AI every single day in creating documents, writing procedures. We in fact just created it's like a 10-page packet for our hygiene team, that shows our protocols, how we handle everything. That would have taken me probably 2 weeks of solid work to get it where I got it to.
Yeah.
Instead, it took me about a day, but it still took me a day because what it initially kicked out wasn't great. And then I had to refine and say, no, here's more information. No, put this here, do this here, reformat it this way. But each step was so much faster than what it would have been before. Elon's talked about how we're not going to have jobs anymore and we're all going to live in this beautiful utopia. And it's, he's smarter than I am, so maybe he's right, but I just don't see that's where we're headed. I think
Yeah.
being more productive, to your point, is going to be where we're headed, but it's going to be interesting how people adapt and what jobs there are and how that whole thing shimmies out.
Yeah, it's going to require, in my view, and this again, he's way smarter than I am. But my view and just what I've seen is we're going to have to really think. It's not going to be we're staying busy with rote tasks anymore. We are really going to have to think about nuanced problems. And the example you gave about, creating processes and protocols and things with your team is, I assume you've already done some work, like as you did with Inspired Hygiene, to really have the clinical philosophy conversations, right? You had that. You all came to a common mindset. You came to a common clinical philosophy. And then it's just a matter of getting it in a document so that it's replicatable, so that everyone knows where to go to get that information. Yeah.
So what I did is I took our current documents and they were, and this is the complaint we got from new team members is, okay, your x-ray protocol's over here,
Yeah.
your perio protocol's over here. I need to know everything in one place. So I took those protocols and I said, combine these things.
Yep.
And then we took it one step further and I said, okay, we think we have a pretty cohesive protocol, but what might I be missing in this protocol? What holes do you see? What areas are unclear? And it did a really nice job of pointing out a few areas where we could have been more clear, or, I think we didn't even have a sealant protocol, for example. We just knew what we did.
Yeah.
And so now we have a sealant protocol that's built in. But to your point, yeah, I can't ask AI to be a doctor and define this for me. And it can do a pretty good job, but it's not going to get it to the level that you're comfortable with actually treating patients.
Yeah. And your team doesn't want you to say, hand over this protocol. Hey, AI created this. Or like, no, like we're dealing with patients. I'm the one that has to deliver this care. So they need to have buy-in and they need to have collaboration around the creation of the standards. Right. And then you can have AI, just like you said, like do the formatting and the consolidation and the organization of what you've already created. But that's a really cool example.
I tell people all the time that to me, AI is like from the finance world. I think of it as like a junior analyst where, I can say, hey, go build me this model and go, this is the information I'm trying to extract. Here's your data set. Here's what I want you to do. Go do this and then come back and present it to me. And then once it's presented to me, I'm then going to analyze that information myself. I'm going to kick it back to you and say, okay, now we need to dive deep into this area or this area or this area. But if you think you can just replace yourself with AI, at least at this juncture, I don't think that's possible. I've seen some comments that all CEOs are going away and AI is going to be able to do it all. The creativity just isn't there yet. And if they cross that bridge, then that'll be interesting.
Exactly. And that was the things that he mentioned that AI cannot replace: creativity, imagination, like relationships, that kind of thing. Although that we could get off.
People are trying.
I know. I was going to say we could get on a topic about that, and that is very odd and scary.
It's just weird.
It's just weird. Okay. So, all right. So speaking of that, like just having that mindset of how can we do this more efficiently? I would think that, you with your finance and your accounting background and just knowing you and having worked with you, like you are really always looking at how can we improve this business from a efficiency standpoint, from a care standpoint, from a culture standpoint, and obviously from a profitability standpoint too. You have your eyes on that, the ball with regards to like building that profitable business. You and Ashley have also worked really hard at developing a strong and positive culture. And sometimes team members feel like those two things are mutually exclusive. That if you're working on having a profitable business, that there's going to be some it's going to be the expense, of patient care, right? So in other words, they assume sometimes, not always, that means we're going to have less time with patients, or it's not going to be as friendly to the team. But having a profitable business and a positive patient experience and positive team experience, those things are not mutually exclusive. So what are some, talk about that a little bit and how you really bring those things together.
Well, I also think we have to think, and I'm going to go on a tangent for a second, and then I'll bring it back to where we are. So when we're looking at, in Dental Success Partners, when we're analyzing another practice that we might want to have join our group, when I'm looking at the profitability of those practices, when we talk about like an EBITDA percentage or kind of a profitability percentage, if it's outrageously high, like they're super, super profitable for the amount of revenue that they're bringing in, it's actually a bit of a red flag to us. And that's because it's not replicatable. So, if you're running, the average dental office is probably in the 15%, a really well-run office is probably 25% EBITDA margin. When you start to have a 3 handle in front of that, I start asking a lot more questions. And it's to the culture point. It's like, okay, are we working everybody to death? And maybe we actually needed to bring on more team members. So, in 2 or 3 years, I'm going to start losing a bunch of people because these folks haven't been treated right. Are we not offering benefits that we should be offering? Are we doing hygiene appointments in 25 minutes instead of an hour so that we can, beat that profitability number just into the ground? So in any business, and it's not just in dentistry, you kind of have to understand what is a reasonable profitability and then try to live with inside that world. It's not just an infinite number that you can get to infinite profitability. So for us with that, we believe that if your team's happy and believes in what they're doing, then they're providing optimal care to the patients. And if you're providing optimal care, then you're offering those additional services. We don't believe in being salesy, but we also acknowledge that every single one of us is a salesperson. And, my job when you come into my office is to explain to you what procedures I feel are necessary and that I would do on my mother when you're, for what your situation is, and to explain to you the reasons and the benefits and the alternatives of all those pieces. If we do that, then we're going to be profitable. We also like to do things that just make the day fun. So for example, if we, hit our target goal, we donate money to a local charity that the team gets to pick what it is. And that's been kind of fun because I've gotten to learn about some charities that I didn't even know existed. We did Ronald McDonald House, everybody knows about, but then we did Single Moms of Kansas City, which I didn't even know existed. And turns out it's a pretty cool deal. So I think attempting to try and make the workday feel better as you're reaching those profitability goals is how you reach that. And if you're just constantly trying to beat people down and inch out one more dollar, it really isn't long-term going to not be a successful plan.
Yeah. Yeah. Because team turnover is very expensive.
Oh.
And yeah, it's very expensive. And so the longer that you can keep people in the practice happily, right, and maintaining the culture, the better. I'm curious, does the team get to pick or at least give ideas about these charities that you guys can?
Yeah. So in our meeting, we have a weekly meeting, and I'll be like, okay, guys, last week we hit our goal. Does anybody have any ideas of where we'd like to donate? And usually 3 to 5 people will be like, hey, I want to do this. I want to do this. I want to do this. We try not to double up.
Yeah.
And in our team's channel, we put out a vote, and, those that want to participate in voting, vote. And then we pick one and send it off to them.
I love that. So what would you say? I've encountered recently some large practices that surprisingly are tracking very little. Now, the owner may be tracking, their P&L obviously in the background, but the team has very little awareness of any of the business numbers of the practice. And even when we introduced our hygiene tracker, it was a little bit of a shock to the system for these team members because they'd never done that before. So what would you say? I mean, it seems so obvious to you because you're a business person and you're looking at multiple metrics, right, throughout your business. But what would you say to an owner that has a large practice and is not really tracking much of anything? What are the maybe key things that they should track, and how does that translate to? Well, let's start there. Like, what are the key things if they had to pick 3 things besides the P&L that they should be tracking in the practice?
I mean, 3 is hard, but we'll do it. Okay. First of all, your revenue. So yeah, you got to have some basis for what that's coming in. For the team, I think we need to make sure that, obviously profitability is important, but it needs to be things that they feel like are tangible and that they can
contribute to.
And so we look a lot at, acceptance percentage and treatment that's presented. So again, we're all talking top line things. But the team's not really in control of what my labor percentage is. There's a few team members that are in very close control of what my supplies budget looks like. So we talk about that. And being cognizant of what you use in labs and when to use the really expensive lab and when to use a normal lab. So we talk a lot around those things. It was a paradigm shift. So again, going back to like 2018, when I bought my dad out, nobody in the practice had ever talked about goals, budgets. They did get a 401k profit share, but they had no idea where it came from or why. It was just this magic thing that got put into their account, and they may not even have known that it got put into their account. We shifted, and it was a tough shift, to be candid, of talking about the numbers and talking about, what our production goal is, and, realizing what our, BAM, bare ass minimum is. If we don't hit our bare ass minimum, then somebody's not getting paid. And the first person not to get paid is me. And that sucks. And it doesn't make me happy. But the next person not to get paid is you. So we got to make sure that we hit, that bare ass minimum every month and be there. Those conversations didn't go ideally at the beginning. I got a lot of, I'm a healthcare provider. I don't want to talk about numbers. All I care about is patient care. When I first came at it, I came at it very analytically and only from the numbers perspective, and probably could have done it more delicately. Now we talk about things in terms of, guys, this month you gave $800,000 of care to patients. And that means that we did, 500 crowns or whatever the numbers might be that month. Those that hits home, that tracks, and they can relate to that.
Yeah.
So, I think you have to be comfortable having those conversations. I'm not handing out my P&L to everybody on my team. There's no reason for that. They wouldn't know or care what to do with it. So, but sharing the information and the values that are levers that people can actually pull is huge.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, sharing what's relevant and them seeing that they're making a difference in their effort, right? Attitude and effort are the things that, they can control for sure. And being able to see that make a difference is really impactful. So thank you for sharing that. So this season, we're about ready to, I think we have one more episode in this season of the podcast. And this whole season has been about rebuilding that doctor hygienist relationship and, talking about different people's experience and, the tension that we've been experiencing over the last few years with hiring or just culture or all the different things. Where over the last few years with this hygiene capacity shortage or challenge, and I know you've experienced this as well in your practice, are there things that you have shifted lessons you've learned or areas where you feel like you've grown as a leader through that you're taking with you into this next phase? Do you have a solid hygiene team right now? How are you feeling about that? I'd just love for you to share that if you don't mind.
Yeah. Right now we're lucky enough we have a really solid hygiene team, and
Awesome.
that's so we're fully staffed. I'm still always looking, so if there's a hygienist in the Kansas City area, feel free to reach out anytime. We will make room for you. With that said, I think that hygiene as a whole has been really misunderstood. And hygienists have a license, and that license gives you the ability to do certain things, specifically, at least in Kansas and most states, scaling below the gum line. So I think when we look at this, it's no different than looking at a doctor. I have an assistant that helps me do a lot of the pieces of the daily to day that I need to do. Unfortunately, I would be willing to bet, fortunately or unfortunately, I'd be willing to bet that our assistants are probably better at taking x-rays than most of our doctors. Taking an iTero scan, I can promise you that my assistants are better at it than my doctors. Why do we not look at hygiene in the same way? And that is working towards the top of your license. Mm-hmm. So I am not a huge fan of what people call accelerated hygiene because I don't like that term. Mm-hmm. We are not trying to put you on a treadmill and make you run faster and do more. What I am trying to do is take away some of those things that somebody else can do and that somebody else can help you with and allow you to work at the top of your license, which is the scaling below the gum line. So if we can have an assistant take x-rays to help you prep for your appointment, if we can have an assistant seat the patient, if we can have an assistant flip the room, you're working similarly to how a doctor works. And that's because you have that license that other person doesn't have. Something had to give. The insurance companies, and we can go down a rabbit hole on that, insurance companies are not increasing their reimbursements nearly as fast as the going wage for hygienists. And I'm not one to come out here and say that I think hygienists are overpaid. But when we go back to the business side of things, if Blue Cross and Blue Shield is going to pay me $45 to do a prophy, and we all agree it should take an hour to do that prophy, and I'm having to pay the hygienist $75 an hour, including benefits, something's got to give. It's just not possible to stay profitable doing that. And we're here to run a business. This is not a non-for-profit. We are trying to make money. And if we can't figure out how to solve for that, then the lights aren't going to stay on and nobody's going to have a job.
Yes. And I have heard this is not, I'm not a fan, obviously, or, practices are not having a hygiene department. I talked.
So what does that do for the patient?
Exactly. They either aren't getting the care they need or they've got to go to two different places, and that's really confusing for everybody. So,
well, yeah, Colorado passed that law where hygienists can own their own practice. Yeah. And in theory, I kind of understand the thought process behind it, but I really don't you might know, can a hygienist diagnose the need for a filling in Colorado?
I believe so.
Okay, so that's a positive because we co-diagnose in Kansas, right? Where the hygienist tells the doctor, "Hey, I really see something here," and the doctor goes, "Yes, you sure do." It's very similar. But to your point, it's difficult for the patient. So they show up to this hygiene clinic and then they say, hey, my doctor friend works 3 miles down the road. I need you to go see them for this filling. The chances of that filling getting done is so low. And that's not good for the patient.
So right now, what you're saying to me is you all are utilizing the model of assisted hygiene in the practice.
It is not a full-time assisted hygiene, but we have hygiene assistants.
Okay.
They're there. They're not specifically assigned to a hygienist, but when a hygienist has an appointment that's running long, needs a quick help, they're there to help flip the room, take the next set of x-rays, do what's necessary. If everything runs as it's supposed to run, all of our hygienists have full hour appointments. They have 2 hours for SRP.
Okay.
They have the time that they felt like they needed to get what's done, but we all know things blow up sometimes. And we want to have that helping force there to give them that aid so that they're not running a rat race.
I love that. That's fantastic. And it also enables them to, I mean, working at the top of the license is one thing that we preach for sure. And it allows them, if they see something that is beneficial for the patient that day, they can do it because they know that dental assistant can see the next patient and get them going. And that saves the patient a trip and all the above, right? Helps them be, more effective, more productive, all the above. So that's awesome. So one of the things that you said that I want to just point out is you're always looking for team members. And I want to encourage everyone to adopt that philosophy and tell your team, hey, you're going to see that we have hygiene ads out. We never know when we might need to add a couple days here and there, or somebody might need to be out for a particular reason. And we just want to be able to meet, people that are in the industry and in our community that might be a good fit for our practice. So it's not a reason for them to feel threatened. I think I think it's more obvious with a larger practice than a smaller practice, right? If you've got, one or two hygienists, but still, you just never know who you might meet and where they might bring a skill set that you don't have or the ability to do in the practice right now.
100%.
So yeah, so I would say, sometimes we talk to doctors and they say they need to hire someone. And I said, so is your hygiene ad active? No, we don't have it out yet. I'm like, well, how do you expect to hire somebody if you don't even have an ad out?
They don't just drop out of the sky.
No, they don't. I'm like, yes, you need to talk to people and network, but you need to get this out like tomorrow, today.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, what I tell our team is we are always hiring for every position.
There you go.
With that said, our level of choosiness changes at times.
Yes, there you go.
So sometimes it's like, if you're a 10 out of 10, I'm hiring you every single time.
Yeah.
If you're a 5 out of 10, I'm probably never hiring you. But that middle ground changes, depends on how badly we need somebody.
Okay. That's fair. I like that. That's a great way to explain that. So, okay. So one of the things you said you shifted is having more support for the hygienist so they can be more productive in the time that they're there.
Yep.
Okay. What do you see, as we kind of wrap this up, what do you see as a next step for dentists and hygienists on our grassroots level to begin to rebuild and heal these dentist hygienist relationships? Because it's a super powerful relationship. Yeah, go ahead.
Delete Facebook.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
I can't, and it's on both sides of the coin. So it's not that doctors aren't doing it, but you get in these chats and I'm like, you do realize that you're posting this to the world and everybody can see it. And I mean, some of it's just mean, some of it's catty, some of it's just plain wrong. Facebook is probably not a place to turn somebody into the medical board. If you really feel like that's necessary, call the medical board.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see one positive that's coming out of these groups. And I think they were started with the right intent of, we can connect this person with that person, for temping or whatever it might be. But it's really just turned into, I had a crappy day and I'm going to go tell the world about it and screw all of you. If you were to replace the word hygienist and doctor with a, race, you would be considered the most horrible person on the planet. However, we say like all doctors are this way or all hygienists are this way online, and it's just pure anger and it needs to go away. So we used to try to participate in those and try to be a positive force, and you just, unfortunately, the negativity brings you down. So we encourage our team to extract themselves from it. And many have commented that they're actually happier since they stopped seeing that. And then, we also love every now and then, we're lucky enough that sometimes team members will leave us because the grass is greener somewhere. And we'll welcome them back with open arms, assuming they left on good terms. And that's helpful at reminding the team, that things aren't so bad. So.
Well, it's also reminding the team that everybody's at choice. Everyone you have a choice to work where you work. Now, I know there are extenuating circumstances in people's lives in different communities, right? You're in Kansas City. There are a lot of dentists to choose from. But you're at choice with who you have on your team, and they're at choice being on your team. And, if they choose to leave, I love that. And you said they leave on good terms and they decide that they don't want to come back. That often there's a place there for them. So that is really good advice. Just get out of these groups. Your whole life will be better. And you'll have time for some things that are a lot more productive and fulfilling, I think, than fighting those battles on Facebook. And and the fewer of us that are there stirring the kettle or trying to change people's minds, the more likely it is that those things will go away.
Well, I mean, if the really loud folks that just are like unhappy and want to watch the world burn, they can just go and sit there and chat with each other and make each other happy, but they don't need to bring the rest of us down with them.
Yeah. And I mentioned this in a previous episode during this season, that is a very small percentage that are, I would say 20% is probably high, but if we look at this 80-20, rule, 20% are creating 80% of the kerfuffle online. It's probably even a lower percentage than that, but it's really loud.
I would also say, I think the advent of AI and, like a deep dive on chat or, having Claude do research has helped with this a little bit, because I noticed, a few years ago, a lot of my team members were desiring to do research, and their research was going on Facebook and seeing something and like listening to people's ideas. And while listening to other colleagues is a form of learning, I would not call it research. So now, if somebody says, hey, tell me about Cervatec or Eucurodont, like, does it work well? I'm like, hey, why don't you, go do some real research using the AI tools, use your education that you have to read through and understand what it's actually telling you. And then let's talk about it. But, one person posting that, I did this and my kid's teeth turned yellow is probably not research. And I think we need to remember that.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yeah, it's a great tool to give me links to these research articles. Ask for the sources on all of those things and then go check out those sources. Yeah. Go check out the sources, if it's a research study or something like that. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. This is fantastic. And we have a lot more we could talk about. I'd love maybe to have you on in the future to talk more about AI and bringing AI into the operatory and how it can really streamline our processes and things like that. So we have that to look forward to. But thanks, Dr. Bill.
Yeah, great to hear from you.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Inspired Hygiene Podcast. We hope you got a ton of value and some things that you can really take away and implement now. So as always, we invite you, if we can help you in any way to optimize your hygiene department, head on over to inspiredhygiene.com. And as always, stay inspired.